We have the terrorists on the run.
We must prepare to die now.
Only third party. I believe we need a UN mandate basically to actually have a new mandate for a Palestinian state. But in the West Bank, Gaza, and whatever parts of East Jerusalem are negotiated between Israelis and Palestinians, and that you would have NATO, not UN troops, but NATO troops that would actually control the frontier in cooperation with Palestinians, and Palestinians would be responsible for their own internal security. The NATO presence there would ensure that no Palestinian state can import heavy weapons.
2, verse 3 and 4, it says that the man of sin, the Antichrist, will sit in the temple of God, claiming to be God. You can't sit in the temple if there isn't any temple. And then in Revelation chapter number 11, verse 1 and 2, it specifically states there that John was told to measure the temple, but do not measure the outer court of the temple, because it'll be trodden down of the Gentiles for 42 months. So get the picture. There's going to be a temple, you're to measure it, but don't measure the outer court. That's going to be under Gentile control. It's talking about a sharing arrangement of the holy places.
2 Thessalonians chapter number 2, verse 3 and 4, it says that the man of sin, the Antichrist, will sit in the temple of God.
Early in the negotiations, Israeli Foreign Minister Shlomo Ben-Ami presents a map showing Israel's opening position.
They want 11% of the West Bank, which is the same figure I heard on June 25th in Rassan Sheikh Hazom.
It was a shock and a big surprise to see the same map in Camp David. In Camp David, the leaders is there, President Arafat, Prime Minister Barak, President Clinton is there, and to bring the same maps.
Abu Allah didn't like what he saw, but he didn't want to talk about it, and so he got pretty angry, and then President Clinton got quite angry at him.
He told him, listen, this is not the General Assembly. I didn't come here to waste my time. Let us be pragmatic. Let us put ideas on the table. Do you accept the concept of border modifications? You do not have to accept the map that Mr. Ben-Ami put on the table. Come with an alternative map. Negotiate. Work on the subject. Don't give speeches.
President Clinton, at that room, he was a mediator or a facilitator. And therefore, the mediator or the facilitator, to show support to one side against the other, is not fair.
To break the impasse, Clinton suggests a land swap, since Israel wants to keep part of the West Bank for settlers. Arafat accepts border modification in principle, but wants other usable land in exchange.
I accept, but to make swap in the value and in the area, not only to give me desert.
Barak said, I'm ready to explore these ideas, subject to Arafat's similar acceptance.
Prime Minister Barak was a man with great vision, but also a man who played things very close to his vest. We did not know, going into Camp David, where Barak's bottom line was.
After listening to both sides, Clinton proposes a compromise. Israel would return almost all of the West Bank and Gaza to the Palestinians. They would swap small parcels of land important to each other, and they would agree to share control of Jerusalem. Barak uses Clinton's proposal as a starting point and suggests several changes. Arafat never replies. Barak then refuses to negotiate with him directly.
Arafat had asked in front of me 3 or 4 times, where is the other guy? One of these dinners, he shook hands with Arafat in a very, I would say it bluntly, unpolite way. And when we sat at the table, he put his hands over his face, and he took his hands away from his face only to eat.
We are talking here about the toughest and more sensitive issues that humankind has ever dealt with. It's not only nationalism, statehood, refugeeism, colonization or settlements, as it were, holiness, sanctity, religion, Islam versus Judaism. And what holiness? Jerusalem. And not only Jerusalem, Temple Mount. Is anybody going to change his positions because of personal relations? Jerusalem. And not only Jerusalem, Temple Mount. Jerusalem. And not only Jerusalem, Temple Mount. Jerusalem. And not only Jerusalem, Temple Mount. And not only Jerusalem, Temple Mount. Is anybody going to change his positions because of personal relations?
9 days into the summit, President Clinton has to leave for a meeting in Okinawa. And Barak, having heard nothing more from Arafat, tells his people to prepare to leave. Delegates on both sides are distraught. They fear that the collapse of the Camp David talks will lead inevitably to war.
Some team members thought we hadn't explored all the options for continuing the dialogue, and that we're about to return to the people of Israel with a negative result, when we can't honestly claim to have tried everything.
There was a very strong sentiment that we should stay and continue the effort. And the dramatic efforts of Clinton, going back and forth between Barak and Arafat, around midnight of that evening, eventually led to the fact that they reached some kind of understanding. They allowed us to stay in Camp David. By that time, we were all very hungry. So all of us walked down to have a late night dinner. When we got there, the Palestinian team was already there. And those on our side and those on the Palestinian side that felt that we should have stayed practically hugged each other. It was a very emotional moment.
and to the end there shall be war. Desolations are decreed, and he shall make a strong covenant with many for 1 week, and for half of the week he shall put an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abominations shall come one who makes desolate, until the decreed end is poured out on the Desolator, on the Desolator, on the Desolator.
Oh non, c'est quoi encore ce truc?
Des gros nuages, qu'est-ce que tu veux que ce soit?
C'est ça,